announcement, you got the best, the hottest band in the world, Sabbath!
All right, SHMACKEMAGOB, it is Black Sabbath Sunday, and I am honored to have Mr. Martin Popoff here. How you doing, Martin?
Doing okay, Ralph. Looking forward to doing this. Awesome.
I'm very honored. I want to say we're going to talk about your brand new book.
Okay.
Dream Evil, Dio in the 80s. But before we go into this, I just want to let you know that this is like my Bible here. And I know it's been long out of print. I also have Black Sabbath Facts, but I moved into my childhood home and it's in a box somewhere. But I have done a Black Sabbath documentary that is no longer on YouTube. It's on BitChute. And every time I had to go into an album, I always read, a little reference. I would twist it around to make it my own, but there's so much information in this. Now, the question I got to ask is I also have the Black Sabbath Facts. Now, I am aware that you have two other Black Sabbath books that are in print now. Sabotage, right, is the first one. And was it Born Again, the second one?
Yes. The way that works is, because that Doom Let Loose is so long out of print, I essentially, and I've done this with Judas Priest now, and I've updated some of my old books. So I basically took that as the anchor book. I get, the rights to the text comes back to me. And I did a massive expansion of the story that is in Doom Let Loose. It's probably twice as long now, and then busted it into two books. So we got Sabotage, Black Sabbath in the 70s, Born Again, Black Sabbath in the 80s and 90s. And I haven't gone beyond the 90s because most of all the good footage I have is available in the Black Sabbath FAQ book. And, really all that's left is the 13 album and the Heaven and Hell band after that. And it worked out to a full book. I basically figure that once I hit about 75,000 words, 75,000 to 90,000 is basically a book length book. So yeah, those two books tell the story in more detail than was in Doom Let Loose, but it has obviously less color pictures.
Well, that was what was holding me off from getting, because I wasn't sure. I wanted to ask you if there was a difference. So what it is kind of like an expanded version of these two books, because I also have a Black Sabbath Facts. So you put in some of the facts, some of Doom Let Loose, and some of new material in it.
It's more or less just the Doom Let Loose expanded. Like, it's double the size of Doom Let Loose, but Black Sabbath FAQ, that is sort of a standalone. Everything that is in there is only in there, more or less.
All right. So now I'd like to talk about your new book. You have, we will plug your stuff later, but you have a show, History in 5 Songs, and also The Contrarian. And I got to tell you, you are perfect for The Contrarian because a lot of people, like Dio, for instance, and we'll get into your favorite Dio album. It is a very contrarian, though I love the album that is your favorite, but most people lean toward Holy Diver.
Yeah.
And I'm one of them, but you seem to have a lot of contrarian things. And I also, at some points, I don't say the popular things, and there's a lot of negative comments. You must get a handful of them.
Yeah, the show is the Contrarians plural. So on the Contrarians episode, it's myself and Marco, and then we have a lot of guests and stuff. But you're right, I did a whole episode on, one of our regular shows, which is somebody on the team has to have a very contrarian choice for their favorite album by the band. And we long time ago did an episode on Dio, and I did pick Dream Evil. So you're right. I mean, just by virtue of what the show is, the Contrarians, and then we have a secondary version of it called Worst Album. So we discuss the worst album by a band. So for those two reasons, you definitely get a lot of anger, right?
Yeah.
Thinking you're crazy. But the fact of the matter is, we've even done episodes where we've said things like, we've had our panel together and said bands you won't see on the Contrarians because, and we've gotten around that a little bit, by the way, by having other people discuss things. But the point is that I'm not always contrarian on favorite album by a band. Aerosmith Rocks is my favorite Aerosmith album, right? And many bands like that.
Physical
right?
Graffiti.
Exactly. Yeah. So many bands like that where I'm not contrarian, but you come out looking more like a contrarian when you have a show called The Contrarians, and you're doing this all the time. But I swear to God, I mean, one of the ones I feel strongest about is Dio Dream Evil. I it's almost one of these things, like I used to joke with people, or I still do, that said God must have gave me the wrong set of Grand Funk albums, because I'm not listening to the same stuff everybody else is listening to, because I don't find any of it very particularly heavy, blah blah blah. Same thing with Dream Evil. I listen to that record throughout and I go, I can't see what anybody can't find on this album that doesn't put it in very, very close ranking with Holy Diver and The Last in Line. It's just track after track after track of slamming perfect, awesome Dio metal, much better than the sum total of Sacred Heart. And just because it's Craig Goldie versus Viv, if you're not a guitarist, you've got nothing to complain about there, or even notice, really. It's just really excellent riffs and excellent soloing. There's no problem with Craig as a guitarist. Later on, Craig's reputation would somewhat be mind melded with Ronnie's reputation as making these slow, doomy things that often lapse into boredom. So later on, when you look at the sum total of Craig, you might think he's a different guitarist. But when it comes to Dream Evil and tracks like Sunset Superman, and I mean, just so much of that record is absolutely as airtight, awesome, top-rate Dio as the first two albums, I think.
I think what Dream Evil does bring that's a little different, I hear a little Rainbow.
Okay. Yep.
The title track is kind of Man on the Silver Mountain-ish riffage on it. And so would Holy Diver be your second favorite of the Dio band?
I usually go with The Last in Line, and the reason I do is because I just feel like it's like 7.2% more sophisticated. It's got just the keyboards are integrated a little better. The production is a little less raw. You feel a little less of the separated out who-like qualities of a guitar player, a drummer, a bass player, and a singer. It just feels like it's more cohesive and just a little more thoughtful and sophisticated. I know even when it came out, the funny thing is the band was a little reserved about it when it first came out. They actually didn't like it as much as the debut. They were feeling a little let down after the process. But I just think I just find it just a little more interesting to listen to. I mean, We Rock definitely is way up in my favorite Dio songs. I Speed at Night. One Night in a City is a gorgeous sort of mid-paced, more melodic one. Yeah, you're right. I mean, Evil Eyes, Mystery. I'm looking at the track list here. Breathless, a little downscale, but yeah, Eat Your Heart Out is amazing as well. So they're very close. It's a little bit like when you have the debate between Diary and Bark at the Moon and Blizzard of Oz, right? I mean, they're all pretty close to each other, and yeah, I just tend to lean a little bit more to Last in Line.
Yeah, I also I'm one of the non-contrarians when it comes to this, because the first Dio. I mean, do you like Holy Diver? I mean,
love it to death. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I mean, I almost feel like all three of those are 9s out of 10s at least. No problem at all. Yeah, it's full of amazing songs. It's got that same excitement that you got with Heaven and Hell, right? Just the excitement of discovery of a really great lineup that works together, even though they're slightly different lineups from each other. So
yeah, to me, that's my favorite, and to me, my favorite Dio song from that era is "Shame on the Night." I mean, I know it's a slow one. I mean,
yeah.
What do you think of Egypt's A Change Are On, since it is a slow one?
I'm less into the slow ones, almost in my DNA. It's not only from later on Dio, but I'm less into the slow ones even from the early days. So no, I'm not a big fan of those. I love the I love the mid-paced ones that are complicated and the fast ones. Dio always said, Ronnie always says it's harder. There's less freedom, less space to write over a really fast song, and that's kind of why he gravitated towards slow. I think he feels a fast song is a little bit unfriendly terrain for a vocalist. But yeah, no, I basically prefer the fairly fast ones and the mid-paced ones that are riffy enough and got some sort of melancholy chord changes in them.
Well, I do see what you're saying. Well, as far as Dio albums go, the first Holy Diver, I mean, some of those riffs Iommi could have wrote, like Holy Diver and Shame on the Night.
Yeah.
The second one was a little less Sabbathy, really, as far as like riffs go. And yeah, it is a little more high energy. And but you do touch upon, so the people that you should get this book, you do touch upon the early career, but not too much. It's kind of like a build up.
Yeah, so in that book, I mean, just a little history on that book. So back in 2006, I think it is, at that time, myself and Brian Slagle, you know, we did a little Metal Blade Books situation, and I did, what did I do? I did a Dio book, a Rainbow book, a UFO book, and a Bluish to Cope book for Brian at the time, and they were 8.5, 5.5. You know, we didn't really particularly think about photos. So the production values weren't great. I was a crappier writer than I am now, you know, and, you know, I'm not saying I'm great now, but back then, you know, when I redo these old books, I really changed them a lot. But so there was an old book called Light Beyond the Black that was all decades. But again, same situation as the Sabbath. I found I had enough material using new interviews I've done since then and other stuff from press, interviews that buddies have done, to basically take the Dio story. And this book is just, you know, Dream Evil Dio in the 80s. So this is only, what is it, four studio albums plus intermission. And you're right, there's a little bit of an intro leading up to it. You know, some talk of the Elf days, the Rainbow days, the Sabbath days, but I try not to go too far into that because, you know, my readers can get that stuff in the Black Sabbath books, and I updated the old Rainbow book too. The Rainbow book is like a 300 and something page single book on the entire Rainbow career, and that's an update of the old Metal Blade one. So this one, I'm going to, because this one's doing okay, I'm going to, you know, do a second half of the career too. And I don't know what I'm going to call it. Well, I'm definitely going to call it Killing the Dragon. But I think I'm just going to call it Killing the Dragon, Dio in the 90s and 2000s is I think what it's going to be. And it's just going to take it the rest of the way, and it's going to be roughly the same size as this book.
So you have interviewed Ronnie, right?
Oh, yeah. Many times.
Have you ever met him?
Yep.
Yeah, I did as well. He was so nice.
4-ish times, you know, quite a bit. And then a lot of phoners. Yep.
Yeah, he's very, very nice. I mean, out of everybody I ever met in any band, and most are nice. Yeah. There's something, I don't know if you got this feeling from him. It's like a personable feeling when you meet him. It's like he looks straight at you and he cares what you think. I mean, yeah. I know you're a writer, but I was just a fan. And, you know, he asked me questions, and it was a very sad day when he passed away. But
yeah. One of my funniest stories is you know, and you know, Ronnie kind of knows all this, and he knows that he's a smart enough guy that knows that it's a good thing to be nice to the fans. But I remember one of our earliest times meeting Ronnie. We had our heavy metal magazine up here in Canada called Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles, and you know, it's Tim Henderson's domain, and he does a beautiful job with bravewords.com. But so Tim and I, earlier in the day, this is a pretty interesting day. So earlier in the day at the flagship HMV in downtown Toronto, he had an in-store performance by My Dying Bride. And My Dying Bride was supporting Ronnie that night at a large club show, right? So I can't remember if we met Ronnie in the store. I don't think we did earlier in the day, but at night, you know, we were hanging around backstage with My Dying Bride and all that, and we met Ronnie, and at one point Ronnie flits through the room and says, "Tim, Martin, how are you guys doing? Can I get you guys a beer? Are you guys okay?" it's like Tim and you know, oh no, we're fine or whatever. And then Ronnie goes off, and Tim and I look at each other and go, did Ronnie James Dio just offer to get us a beer? We just thought that was so cool, right? And that probably was my I don't know if that was probably close to my first time meeting Ronnie. Maybe I met him one time before. Definitely had a phone or two, but we just thought that was so cool. It's like, wow, Ronnie just offered to go get us a beer. That's really cool. Yeah.
That is nice. You know, you and I are pretty close in age, but I came into music later than you because I do watch you on Sea and Tranquility and your Contrarians, and I know you were aware of Rainbow and Rainbow Rising came out. And I didn't even know Ronnie was in Rainbow till I heard it was a radio contest for the Heaven and Hell show asking what band was Ronnie in before Black Sabbath. And I had no idea. I knew of I Surrender and Difficult to Cure and even some of the Down to Earth stuff. So that's how I discovered. How did you discover? Was it Elf or Rainbow when you first discovered Ronnie?
Not Elf, but it would have been Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, the debut as a new release. So I would have been 12 already. Myself and my buddies in our little town in Trail, BC, British Columbia, Canada, right? You know, already a huge music fan, probably by 12, more or less by 11. So, and really already starting at around 9. So 1972, 73 had a handful of albums, 74 more, you know, Kiss is a new release, Rush is a new release. I remember that, but definitely as a new release because we knew all about Deep Purple by that point. And here comes this album with this really cool album cover for a kid, right? You know, the castle on there made out of the guitar. Like, it's like, this is definitely a buy, right? And liked it a fair bit, didn't love it to death. I remember, you know, it was fairly heavy for its day. The Richie Blackmore's Rainbow album, 75. But not egregiously heavier than most things that we knew already by that point. But when Rising came out, the big thing about Rising was we had this whole crazy rating system of songs where we can get on the phone and say lousy good, average good, so-so, lousy, really good. And we knew exactly what an album was like, and it was all based on heaviness for us as little kids, right? But when that album came out, it was the first album. It was a historic moment because it was the first album that we had ever heard in our lives that was a 6 out of 6 with no lousies or so-sos. So it was an album where all 6 songs were essentially heavy metal, the heavy metal of the day. It was, and what we called that was a perfect album. So there were very few perfect albums ever. There was that, there was Let There Be Rock, there was the Sex Pistols album, there was the second and third and fourth Motorhead album, but not the first Motorhead album because we thought Vibrator was a so-so, I think, because it was just too happy sounding, right? But yeah, so Rising was the first album ever that made our rating system as a perfect album.
Right on. And also, like, what'd you think of the early the first 2 Black Sabbath albums with Dio?
Yeah.
To me, they were just phenomenal.
Yeah, I loved them to death. I mean, you know, a very different sort of band. By that point, you know, the one negative I say about those records is that it is missing the fearless creativity and element of surprise that you would get on Sabbath albums. Really, all of them, but certainly the last 4 of them out of the first 8, right? They're, you know, people even debate whether they're progressive metal albums. I don't think so. That's just a whole different headspace. But you certainly, you know, Never Say Die for all the amount that people knock it. I love it to death. I mean, the production's really rough and stuff, but there's some really out there stuff on there. And now you've got Sabbath as this sort of self-aware band. It's a super group kind of at this point. And there's just no fat on Heaven and Hell or Mob Rules. They're just, and the arrangements are pretty much locked down. There's certainly no horn arrangements like you get on Never Say Die, you know, Breakout or whatever. Breakout and Air Dance, maybe just Breakout. But But so I loved them. They were great, and we were really excited, and everybody's rooting, tooting for Ronnie and the band, and perfectly happy for this change in lineup, because hey, we got Ozzy Osbourne as a solo artist out of it as well, right? So yeah, really loved them. Saw Sabbath for the first time ever on the Mob Rules tour in Vancouver with the Outlaws supporting at the Pacific Coliseum. That was really cool. Yeah, the productions are very different from each other. The first one is very Martin Birch-like, where you don't get a lot of bottom end. It's very bright and MIDI. And then the second one has an uncommon amount of bottom end for a Martin Birch production. It's just a big, powerful sound. But I think both of them are great albums.
Yeah, I've said it many times because Sabbath is my favorite in the 70s. And I think the difference, and I always say this, the difference between Ozzy and Dio Sabbath is that the Ozzy era was more organic, more like you said, the element of surprise was very much in there. Where I think the Dio era was just perfection. You know, it was like just spot on, just perfect, everything, the structure of the songs, and also like, you know, Bill Ward's like my favorite drummer, and I love what he does on Heaven and Hell, but it doesn't sound like the Bill Ward we know, because he's more in the pocket on Heaven and Hell, where he was more sporadic. And by the way, I love Never Say Die, which is very odd because it's not one of my favorites, but it's the one I listen to the most.
Yeah.
You know, it's an odd thing that it's not my favorite album from Black Sabbath, but yet it's the one I listen to the most.
Yep. I'm exactly like you, Ralph. I mean, literally that one and Technical Ecstasy are the two I listen to the most. Just because, you know, it's that little thing of you're not sick of them, you haven't overplayed them. There's always something new to discover. They're the underdog band. There's a feeling of anxiety. There's kind of like a white knuckle. Are we failing? We've got to try. You know, there's just a lot of tension and just cool conflicting emotions across those two records.
Did you hear the Steve Wilson mix of Technical Ecstasy that came out, like, I don't know, several months ago?
Yeah, I didn't feel that the changes were all that important. I remember, what do I remember from that? The clavinet is much more prominent in All Moving Parts.
Yeah.
Stand Still. That was pretty cool. You get to hear the Jez Woodruff, you know, vibe in there a little more. I can't remember any of the other things. I didn't find it particularly all that different, but it is cool when they do that stuff.
I never liked the song She's Gone.
Right.
And I'm not a big fan of Rock and Roll Doctor either, but I did like him a little more on the remix. He did something to those songs that, I mean, I still don't love them, but I like them more than how they originally came out. And oddly enough, I did see the Mob Rules tour with the Outlaws as well, which is a very odd pairing, right?
Yeah, cool.
And I did see the Heaven and Hell tour, but it wasn't with Blue Oyster Cult. I saw him with Johnny Van Zandt in a band I never heard of before, and I became a huge fan that night. Was Riot. Riot opened that, and it was the Narita tour, and then I got to see Riot again with Rush on Fire Down Under. Nice. But yeah, I've been going to shows quite a while, since '79. You know, my first was Cheap Trick, and just last night I was listening to I don't know, I think it was like the Guitar Hack. I think that's his name.
Yeah.
You guys did your favorite Cheap Trick albums, and I was pleasantly surprised to see All Shook Up made it to the top of your top of your list, because it's one not very talked about, you know.
Yeah.
And I do really like that. So going back to the Dio book, I mean, not to give anything away, I mean, I want people to read it, but you know, we already touched upon Holy Diver and Last in Line, and were you as disappointed as me when Sacred Heart came out?
Definitely. The production is very brash and hard on the ears. It's kind of screechy. So there's a lot of noise on it, and it's very kind of mid-paced. It's a little more commercial. It felt like they were kind of grasping at straws. You lost the feeling that this was a world-beating band on its way up. Just an exciting young band, the same way that you felt about Iron Maiden, really, at that time. They didn't seem like the cool hip band anymore. They seemed like a band that was a little tired, and it's like, maybe they're going to be, starting to get replaced by other bands, like maybe Metallica at this point, right?
Yeah. Do you think that that's what damaged his career as far as like, because your favorite's Dream Evil, and Dream Evil didn't do as well. You think Dream Evil would have been a better follow-up to Last in Line to have the career keep going and a trajectory it was going at the time?
Well, yes, although it's kind of a surreal way of looking at it, because obviously we've got the third Viv Campbell album. So you couldn't have had a Dream Evil, I suppose. But at this point, the band is fighting a lot. Just looking at the track list here, never liked King of Rock and Roll. For the exact same way and reason I don't like Long Live Rock and Roll on the Rainbow album. It just seemed, and come to think of it, same reason I don't like Thunder and Lightning as the first song on Thunder and Lightning by Thin Lizzy. Yeah. To me, these just seem like a little bit too regular, rote, expected rock and roll songs, and they don't have the personality of the band in them as much. But yeah, the band was fighting at this point. The album cover was terrible with the stupid looking dragon and all that. So bad album cover as well. Yeah, definitely disappointed. So it's 85, right? So Metallica's got 2 records out by this point. Accept is an exciting band at this point with 2 great albums. Well, I'm not sure when Metal Heart comes out, but you've got Balls to the Wall and Restless and Wild, and Maiden is already up to Power Slave at this point. So Maiden's an exciting band. Ozzy's an exciting band. Ozzy's last album at this point was amazing, so it was Bark at the Moon. So yeah, I think. It definitely felt like Dio was now like moving down the list of great bands.
So since Dream Evil is your favorite Dio album of the 80s, what makes it your favorite over, let's say, the first 2? What is it about it that?
Well, I think it's heavy, it's dark. It might even have the best production, although it seems like the guys even complain about the production. I almost wonder if people's disdain for the album is the weird thing that we see on Wikipedia, where we see the sales figures down the side, where we see that he's got oh boy, what is it? Is it a platinum and a gold, something like that, or gold, platinum, gold. Anyways, when it comes to Dream Evil, there's just like a number there, and it says something like 53,000 copies, right? Whereas Sacred Heart was definitely gold, which is over 500,000. So I wonder, I think that number is wrong. I think that number is way too low. And nobody's changed it, and nobody knows where I guess you could check where it's come from, but I have a feeling that number is way too low. But I think people look at that, and psychologically, if you're in the know and know the Sacred Heart is gold, then you're thinking this album sold 1/10 the amount of copies. I just don't believe it. But no, I think it sounds great. It's got incredible, super heavy songs like Night People is great. Dream Evil is great. Like I say, Sunset Superman could be the best Dio song ever. I think it's just got a weird title that probably psychs people out and they don't go play it. Sunset Superman is a weird combination of words to hear for a Dio title, but it is an absolute, stormbringer of a song. It's really cool. All the Fools sailed away. I like Naked in the Rain is great. Overlove, super fast one. Could have Been a Dreamer's a little poppy. Faces in the Window is amazing on here. When a Woman Cries is amazing. Claude's keyboards are really cool on this album. It's not overly done, but they're sophisticated, just like on Last in Line. I just think it's the best collection of songs, and I have no problem with Craig as a guitarist.
Yeah, I do think they made a mistake releasing I Could Have Been a Dreamer as the first single, though.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I think it's the weakest song, and when you hear that title, you hear that chorus, and it's a really bad chorus, right?
Yeah, it should have been either Sunset Superman or All the Fools Sail Away. Would have been a better, a better indication of, how this album actually is. I do think, I love Dream Evil, but I do think it's kind of front loaded up to Overlove, and then it kind of dips for me after that. But where to me, Holy Diver is just completely from beginning to end, you know. So yeah, so I got to say, there's a lot of pictures in this book.
Yep.
Just about every page I see, you know, and you got some color pictures in the middle.
Yeah,
and it's a good read. I mean, I'm halfway through it because I'm doing a lot of yard work here in my new house.
yeah.
But I got to say that. So you're gonna do. Have you started working on the next DO one or?
No, because I have other big projects. You know, I've got, I think, 5 finished books that aren't out yet. This actually just came. So this, I got an advanced copy of this Bowie at 75 book in a big slipcase. This is a beautiful, that's plastic, and that's felt on plastic. And then it's got all this in it. So this is the nicest book I've ever done, nicest book I've ever had done for me. You know, by Voyager Press. It's got an envelope with a print in it and something else I can't remember. So this is coming out. I've written a couple things that I probably shouldn't even say what they are because I don't know if they're announced yet. But I like I say, I have 4 or 5 other things, and I'm in the middle of a heavy writing of a book that I have to do. So I really can't start the second half DO for a couple of months, I don't think. But I'm definitely going to do it because this one's selling really well.
So this is like that Bowie book you just. Does that take longer to do because of getting clearance from the pictures that?
No, the nice thing is I just literally turn in the text to this publisher. I love this publisher. This is Quarto Voyager Press. And I just turn in the text and they do all of that, all the buying and getting of the pictures, the gorgeous, gorgeous layout, amazing design. We've got a timeline in here that folds out.
Nice.
You know, it's an amazing book. So literally for this one, I just turn in the text and they do everything else. And I eventually see proofs and I check the captions and all that kind of thing. But that's it. So, and this is about the 10th book I've done for Voyager. I did all that whole album by album series. So in print is Queen album by album. I still have that one at my site. Rush album by album. Out of print are AC/DC album by album, Pink Floyd album by album. There's one other one Iron Maiden album by album is still in print. And then also for them, I did Led Zeppelin, all the albums, all the songs. That's out of print. The Clash, all the albums, all the songs. That's coming back into print through a different publisher. And then I still have some copies of Metallica, the Illustrated History, but Rush, the Illustrated History is also out of print. So I've done a lot and the hair metal book I did for them, and I've written for some things inside. And they're all amazing, beautiful, beautiful designs. And that's what I really like as well.
So all those books are the same. They're the ones that had the pictures. You just had the text.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that makes it much easier. And it's not as many that you would do in a regular book.
Yeah.
Right? Is there any band that you would love to write a book about but haven't?
Well, the nice thing is, like this Bowie book, and Pink Floyd and even AC/DC, the formats and the concepts are such that they weren't interview intensive. So they were, and the Zeppelin one where I had to just write about every single song. So it was nice to be able to write about some bands that I don't have a bunch of interviews, because usually like this DO one and most of the ones that I self-publish or go through my UK publisher Weimer. You know, I used to have sort of a rule of thumb that I won't even think about writing a book on a band until I've interviewed them 25 times, right?
Right.
So it's almost a 2-part answer where there are bands I wish I would have had 1 million interviews with, and I'd like to write that kind of book with, i.e. Queen or somebody like that. But I've actually done a Queen book, so there's not that many bands left. Boy, The Jam, XTC, but these are bands I've never interviewed even once. The Stranglers I love. I've interviewed them a bunch of times. I would love to do a Stranglers book at some point. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, having done Zeppelin, God, I've done most of my old 70s heroes. I don't know if there's any left. But yeah, some of these new wave bands, you know, some of these punk bands, new wave bands, that would be pretty cool to do a book on. I'm a big punk and post-punk guy. The last 20 years, I've listened to probably more Jam and the Damned. See, I've done a Damned book. It's just not out yet. And that one is just writing reviews of every single Damned song. It was really cool. So it's like my Zeppelin and my Clash one. But yeah, and then the other side of the question is, you know, there's tons of guys I've never interviewed that I would love to interview one day, i.e. top of the list would be like Pete Townsend, Roger Waters, Jimmy Page, those kind of guys I've never talked to before, Brian May. So yeah, lots in that department. But yeah, it's funny, given these other concepts, I've been knocking down bands I didn't think I'd ever be writing a book on, like Bowie.
Amazing. Well, you did crown jewel, I would think, is you interviewed Paul McCartney.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, he's either the biggest living rock star or the biggest rock star of all time. But although maybe the biggest rock star of all time, you'd have to go with Elvis Presley. Yeah. But I always every once in a while I put this debate on Facebook: who is the biggest rock star of all time, right? Or living, and you know, and combine it with dead, and it's like Paul McCartney is either number 1 or number 2, living or dead, right?
Yeah. definitely the richest, because he has over $1 billion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I saw how much he has, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the richest rock star there is, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But well, Martin, you know, I would love to have you back on, because you know, I think we just scraped the surface, because there's a lot of stuff that you're very knowledgeable about, and I'm a big fan of, and I like to pick your brain on some of them. But I do want to tell everybody that this is a great read. Check out Dream Evil, and thank you so much for the really nice autograph you gave me here, and the little quote saying, calling me a legend, and that I do a lot for metal. So I really do appreciate it. So you've seen my channel, I take it?
Yep.
Okay, great. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to have you back.
Okay, sounds good.
So thank you so much for your, and you know, it will be up on Black Sabbath Sunday coming up, and it was an honor, because you know, I've been reading your books for a while. I have several. Oh, the Merciful Fate book is really good too.
Yeah,
that one I purchased as well. And but again, thank you so much for your time, and I hope to have you back.
Okay, sounds good, Ralph. We'll talk to you later.
You have a great day.
Yeah, bye now.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.